I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm AWS certified. Hey, what's poppin', everyone? So in this video, I'm going to tell you how you can get the AWS Developer Associate Certification in 2 weeks or less, or maybe a couple weeks. In this video, I'm going to go over all the services that you need to know, or at least the main services you need to know. And I'll give you some pointers on each of those services, some frequently asked questions, and some tips on studying. And if you don't know who I am, I am AWS certified. Didn't know if you can tell with my AWS certifications. I have most of the AWS certifications, like Developer Associate, Solution Architect Associate, SysOps Associate. I have most of the specialties as well, like big data, security, machine learning. I have videos on all those if you would like to watch them as well. So before we get in the video, could you triple smash that like button for me? It'll really help the YouTube algorithm. And I wanted to show you my backpack I got from AWS after getting certified. I think this was after getting a specialty certification. You get to the ability to buy this backpack, and I think you might get like this shirt after like an associate. So after you get the developer associate, you can get this shirt and maybe the hat as well. So the first thing I would do if you're studying for this certification is I would go through all the key services, and I'm going to go through all those key services in this video. And I'm going to, I can't like thoroughly go through all the services and what they do, because that would be like many hours long. But I'm just going to give you some key concepts and some study tips around these services. And if you don't recognize or remember any of these services, then I would recommend to go through the AWS FAQs on these services, because they give good information, or maybe even the documentation. I will link that in the description. All right, so here I am on the documentation page, and you'll see there's a lot of services. And one of the things I wish I knew, like when I took the certification, is which services do I need to study? Like, there's so many. And of course, you don't really need to know much about mobile or too much about the Internet of Things, but a lot of these services are covered by this certification. But I want to give you like some specific ones that are really important. All right, the first service I wanted to tell you, which is really important, is IAM, Identity Access Management. And you need to know a couple things about this service. And it's basically just for security. So you'll need to know the difference between users, groups, and roles. And you'll need to know some of the different like policy types as well. So inline, managed, and then customer managed policies. You're going to need to know the difference between these. So next service is EC2, Electronic Compute Cloud. So what you really need to know for this one is that you need to know some stuff about like its load balancers, like the difference between application load balancers, network load balancers, and classic load balancers. So if you do not know, application load balancers are on layer 4, and the network load balancers are on layer 7. And classic load balancers, they're kind of moving away towards that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not going to be in the exam, but it's going to be on layer 4 and 7. And I do want to mention one thing more with EC2, is that Developer Associate doesn't really care that much about EC2 compared to Lambda. So I think it's because more and more developers are using Lambdas now instead of EC2s. All right, speaking of Lambda, you do need to know Lambda pretty much in and out, and it's a really simple service. All you really use it for is to run code in the cloud, and you don't have to spin up any servers. Though there are some like access things you can do with it, but you can like invoke stuff with, you can use other services with it as well, like S3 buckets and DynamoDB. Those are the key services that all are used alongside of S3 buckets, or alongside of Lambda. And since this certification focuses so much on Lambda, you will also need to know the serverless application model. So this is basically a model to put together serverless applications, so without EC2. So it'll use Lambdas, and they have this thing called the SAM template. And basically what this will do is that once this template is made, it'll allow you to just spin up this Lambda for multiple environments pretty easily. All right, so now for S3 buckets. So you do need to know a good amount for S3 buckets. So one thing I would pay attention to is the difference between some of the storage tiers of S3 buckets. So there's IA, infrequently accessed. So some of these might be cheaper than others. So there's reduced redundancy. So that means it's going to be only in one availability zone. And then there's Glacier. So only use Glacier if for kind of like for archiving stuff that you're not going to use for a long time. Like if you're not going to use it like for 30 days, it's probably cheaper to use Glacier. Otherwise, just use normal S3 most of the time. All right, now on to DynamoDB, another very important service, because once again, it's used by Lambda, and everything centered around Lambda is kind of the core of this certification. So one key thing is you need to know the difference between query and scan. So query is going to find only by the primary key, while scan is going to look through the whole table and is very, I guess, resource intensive and more costly. So always use query when needed. And of course, DynamoDB is NoSQL. So it's no structured query language. All right, so you will need to know the KMS, Key Management Service, but you won't need to know it to like the level as the security specialty exam. You'll need to know the general features, like you use it to create and manage encrypted keys, and you can encrypt stuff in S3 buckets with it. All right, next thing you're gonna need to know is Cognito, and Cognito has user pools and identity pools. And what user pools do is they allow you to really provide web identity federation. And what does that mean? Basically, you can add sign-in and sign-up features for like a website really easily. And then there's also Cognito identity pools. And what identity pools allows for users to get temporary AWS credentials so that they can use some services. And of course, they only last a short amount of time, but it also allows for the creation of identities that are going to be unique between users. All right, next thing you're going to need to understand is the difference between SNS and SQS. So SNS, remember, is just going to push stuff away. Like, we're going to push you out of here, and then SQS will kind of like pull you in. Like, kind of like, think of it like a tug of war. Who's the puller? Who's the pusher? So SNS is going to publish something to like Lambda SQS. So that's where it can kind of get confusing, because SQS can pull from SNS. So you can also do it with email and HTTP. And then there's also SQS, which I mentioned before, but allows for hosted queue. And the queue is just, you stand in line for the queue. Like you're at the grocery store, you're in line for the queue, you bought your Doritos, your Mountain Dews, and you're in the line for the queue. And that's what a simple queue service will do. All right, next thing is CloudFront, and CloudFront's really cool because it's kind of like a worldwide kind of like service. So it works with like a worldwide network of data centers called edge locations. And really the goal of CloudFront is to get things to you quicker. So it's going to speed up all the web content by delivering it through edge locations. So think of it kind of like the energy drink of AWS for the world. All right, and then there is Kinesis. So Kinesis has a bunch of different like kind of services in it. So there's video streams, data streams, Firehose, and all this data analytics. And the two services I kind of want to focus on, although all those are important, are data streams and Firehose. You're going to need to know the difference between them. And the key difference that data streams has over Firehose is that data streams has these kind of like individual compute things like called shards. So imagine a really big crystal. There's a shard that falls off of it, and that shard can do a bunch of stuff. And you can get more of the shards to, I guess, speed up the process. While on the other hand, there's Firehose, which is fully managed, so you don't even have to worry about shards or anything like that. And you can use like services like S3 with it, or you can use S3 with pretty much everything. But I meant like you can use Lambda with Firehose. That's a really common service to use with it. And then it's really easy. So anything easy, you get like a Firehose and you're gonna put out the fires, while everything else you can let the data streams handle. All right, now we're going to get into some CI/CD services. So these are, of course, very important because developers need to continuously integrate and continuously deploy and deliver their application in the code. And what Code Pipeline does, it allows you to, I guess, deliver and like builds on like a pipeline. So once you commit, there's code commit, and then it'll build, that's code build, and then it'll deploy it with code deploy. And all the Code Pipeline kind of like puts it all together. So it's really, really an awesome tool. So it'll just automate your software release process for you. So code build, like I said before, it'll automate like a bunch of your stuff. Like if you want to run unit tests, before you build, you want to compile your source code, you want to do maybe some extra steps you don't want to know, produce artifacts and stuff like that. Code build will do it all for you, and you can just automate it once you like commit to a certain branch in Git. And you can do all that with code commit, but I won't mention that here. So CloudWatch is basically the scribe of AWS. It'll take the notes for you that when you need it the most. So it'll monitor things like storage, compute, database, analytics. One thing it won't take care of RAM by itself. You have to add a custom metric for that, but it'll just write stuff down for you. It'll take notes. That's what you really remember it as. I do want to also mention CloudTrail. It will basically record all your Cloud API calls. So that's for like recording API calls, while CloudWatch is for monitoring like compute and storage and stuff like that. Just remember the key difference on this exam. So systems administrator or systems manager, more for like the sysops administrator associate exam. Not really for much for this one, but this might be used as like a distractor. And really what this do, it will give visibility and control over some AWS infrastructure for you. That's it. So yeah, config, once again, probably not that important for this exam, but what it'll do is it'll record the state of your services, and it'll notify you if something changes. So this is important for like security as well. All right, API gateway, very important for this exam because Lambdas wouldn't be very useful without the API gateway. And what this does, it'll create an interface for clients that allow you to call these Lambdas so that you can just make RESTful endpoints and make useful services. That's very useful. So VPCs are an interesting one for this exam. So there's probably not going to be that many questions on VPCs, maybe 1 or 2, probably at most. And what really, it just allows you to network in the cloud. So you can use it for like networking for EC2s and stuff like that. So there's probably not going to be much information or questions on RDS because this is not really a database kind of exam. It's not the database search specialty anyways. And it would probably be more in the associate or solutions architect associate, but they might ask you questions on it and maybe take a couple minutes studying it. But read replicas can be used with RDS, and they basically allow you to get read-only copies of the database. All right, now you want to maybe know a little bit of ElastiCache. ElastiCache is an in-memory cache that you can use to, I guess, speed up some processes. So you'll need to know the difference between Redis and Memcached. So Redis will support multi-availability zone, while Memcached will not. And Redis will also support master-slave, while Memcached will just be used kind of for simple caching. All right, that is the end of all my key services. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you could subscribe to this video, if you made it all the way through, that'd be great. And I'll make more content similar to this, or maybe some software engineering content as well. If you liked the video, like it. I'll see you later. Peace.